business that the council resolves to exclude the press and public from because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. So firstly, are there any apologies for absence, please?
Councillor Arrow-Roberts, Chair.
Councillor Arrow-Roberts, thank you. Right, item 2 is direct declaration of interests. Legal Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware of the requirements under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or indeed a prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available from the committee support staff here today. Diolch. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no declarations, I take it. So are there any urgent matters as agreed by the chair? I haven't received any and the officers haven't received any. Item 4 is the minutes of the last meeting, which is on pages 7 to 14. So if I could take you through them for accuracy, please. Page 7, items 1, 2, 3 and 4. Page 8, items 5, 6, 7. Item 9, item 8. Page 10, item 9. Page 11. And page 12, item 10. And page 13 and page 14. Any points of accuracy anybody wishes to raise? No. Can somebody move those for me, please? As a correct record. I see Anton Sampson. Do I? No, I see heads up there. Have we got those? There's been, and Mrs. Butterfield seconded, I think. Correct. Is there anybody dissenting from adopting these minutes? No, I'm taking that everybody is in favour. So we'll adopt those. Thank you very much. We now have a review on item 5. We have a review of the Licensing Act 2003, which is a statement of our licensing policy, which you'll find on pages 15 to 72. And it's to consider a report by the Head of Planning, Public Protection and Countryside Services to seek members' review of the Council's statement of licensing policy prior to formal consultation and subsequent submission to full council. So that is on page 15, please, members. And Nikki, are you going to take us through that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Morning, members. The purpose of this report is to inform members of the statutory requirement to review the Council Statement of Licensing Policy, which is due every 5 years, and to authorise officers to commence consultation. The proposed changes have been drafted together with all North Wales authorities, which have been highlighted in red on the attached draft policy. You'll note there are no significant proposed changes other than those required by legislation and Health Board responsibilities. To comply with the statutory requirements, consultation will need to be carried out with the bodies highlighted in 5.1 within the report, together with the public notice and press publications and all existing licence holders. If representations are received as a result of consultation, officers will report back to the next licensing committee. However, should there be no representations to the draft policy, we would seek your approval to submit a report to full council to approve the policy in draft. Members are therefore asked to consider the draft statement of licensing policy and authorise officers to commence consultation. And should there be no representations received as a result of the consultation carried out, members support the draft statement of licence policy for full submission to full council. Or should representations be received as a result of the consultation, officers report back to the December licensing committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Hopefully we've all managed to read through the policy. Does anybody want to raise any points from it? Yes, did I see Mrs. Butterfield wants to speak, I think?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I was just looking for my hand to put up. Sorry about that. But yes, I did have a couple of questions and I'm sure that Nikki will be able to answer them quite readily. But on, excuse me, on page 28, I think it is, the provision to provide a first aid room. I just need a little bit of background behind that, if I may, Nikki, and including a defibrillator in larger venues. Are we confident that there are defibrillators in all large venues, and who will make the decisions as to who would qualify to provide one of those particular items? And then I'd just like to ask us a question, Chair, if I may, on page 29, and it says no drinking from bottles. That's why I'm asking, are we saying in this on page 29 that there will be no drinking from bottles? Because this seems to be, I don't know because I don't go in pubs now, but it does seem to me that that is sort of very much in vogue at the minute, that that's what young people do. And so I wonder, could you just talk me through that as well? How do we control, or do we have any control over the street drinkers that drink out of bottles? And I think a responsible person must ensure, oh yes, on page 70, licensing conditions, and it says that there should be a responsible person must ensure that free water should be readily available on request. Well, where is what would we constitute a reasonable request, and where is is it available? Are we confident that that is available if there is no responsible person available, only a bar person? Those are just a few of my questions. And on page 78, oh, no, sorry, I'm going on to another item. I beg your pardon, Chair. But those are just 4 of my issues that I just like addressing, if I may, just to put my mind at ease that we're not making unreasonable requests, and especially as far as the water is concerned, whether that would be readily available on demand if there was a busy barman or barwoman in charge of a bar and wouldn't have the time to perhaps fulfill a request for water. Thank you.
Are you able to help?
Thank you, Chair. I'll answer the question first regarding water. Water does have to be readily available and it has to be free. That is a mandatory condition of the Licensing Act. So they do have to, it is a requirement under the legislation as a mandatory condition for all licensed premises that has alcohol on their license to provide that free drinking water. I hope that's answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
In the same
that
way,
one.
ask for any other drink.
Yes, they have to be given free drinking water. It'd be tap water.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the first question, I think the field raised regarding defibrillator
And first aid room.
It's would be within their risk assessment, a bit like any reasonable measure under coronavirus. they need to look at it under their risk assessment, and it would be, if it's required under that risk assessment, then they would need to provide that first aid equipment. I would imagine it's also under some health and safety at work legislation as well, if you're an employer, and maybe Tim might be able to come in on that.
Thank you.
Have a comment, Tim, on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to assist with that, certainly the use of defibrillators, there would be an expectation that that will be built into a risk assessment, and that would have to be considered, because that's clearly a risk if there is not one. In terms of the Health and Safety at Work Act, that is about not exposing third parties or employees to risk to their health and safety. I suppose if there was an incident due to the lack of a defibrillator and it showed up on a risk assessment that was needed, then perhaps with my health and safety prosecution head on me, that might be possibly an offence under the Health and Safety at Work Act as well. But obviously that you'd have to consider the evidence and the merits of the case first. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a number of committee members first, and after that, if that's acceptable. So I think Mervyn Miles, top.
No, the Chair, the drinking from bottles.
Sorry.
If that could be addressed, I wonder, could someone talk us through that? Are we saying that there has to be no drinking from bottles? As I seem to think it was in vogue at the minute that people do drink from bottles. And how do we control the street drinking when people drink from bottles? Or is that just an entirely different issue for the police? Thank you. That was my other question.
With regards to street drinking, maybe Ian is better placed to answer that question.
What about drinking from bottles in the premises?
Drinking from bottles in the premises. So
On page 29.
Drinking from bottles, so long as it's not a condition of license that they can't do so, then customers can drink from bottles.
Okay. It's not too clear on page 29 how that reads.
That, Nicky?
Chair, if I may, it's Ian.
Yeah.
Just to highlight the externally, Joan, obviously the in and around Rill in particular, the public space protection orders kick in. So that would be a matter for to fall under that particular order. And in respect of drinking from bottles, we'll have a look at that section and we'll just make sure that it's worded correctly to make it seem sensible before it goes out to consultation. So we're looking at page 29, were we, Joan? Just to be
Yes, we were. Yes.
Right, okay. We'll have a look back at that page 29 and reread it with a fresh eye, so to speak.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Are you happy about
and thank you, officers. Yes, absolutely. They've answered all my questions. And I think that is eminently sensible that we revisit page 29, drinking from bottles. Thank you.
Right. Okay, if you're happy, I'm going to move on to members. Mervyn Parry.
Yeah, can you hear me, Chair? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Mo.
Yes.
Yeah, just sorry. It's just about the defibrillator and the first aid room. It seems very vague to me in how that's being looked at, and I'm just wondering whether this is actually something that licensing should be dealing with, or is it something that, as any business, they have their own health and safety policies and whatever. It's a bit bumbling of what the solicitor was saying there of how it should be managed, and I'm just wondering whether it is something that licensing should be dealing with, or whether that company or business's health and safety policies under their risk assessment should be dealing with that separately from licensing. Thank you.
Ian, have you got a view about that, or Nikki, about whether it is right for it to be part of the policy?
Chair, if I can, please. My view is that it's probably right to have it in our policy that to encourage them to look at the management of the premises in its entirety. You'll note that it's reasonable steps, so they should be as they've
We're losing you.
they would be encouraged and to consider it what's reasonable in all aspects to deal with that. And some may not need a first aid equipment, a first aid room, or just a first aid box. But they should consider it as a reasonable measure, and I think, as Councillor Mervyn Parry suggested, that it would be up to them to determine what is the reasonableness for their business.
Are you happy about that, Mervyn, or do you want to comment further?
Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with it. I think I'll look at that one again myself and maybe make some comments back again. I just don't feel that we should sort of enforce it unless the business is actually need it, or how it goes. I'm not sure if it's a licensing thing properly. Thank you.
So are you may talk to the licensing, to Ian yourself, you mean, and the licensing team?
I'll have a think about it, and if I'm happy with it, I'll leave it. If not, I'll come back and comment to Ian on it.
Thank you. Brian Jones.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Mervyn Parry's comments, really, it's a bit open-ended the way it appears to be worded. There's obviously cost implications to businesses, licensees, depending on how far you take it. The way that it's described in this review of the policy, it's all a bit open-ended, and you might in fact cause more confusion with the subject matter because you haven't stipulated a bit more what exactly is required. It's better to surely put something down in black and white and be more concrete about it, as opposed to leaving it up in the air, and then you'll create confusion with the people who you're asking to perhaps put things in place, and create confusion for the licensing departments because they won't have a gauge, they won't have a rule of thumb to judge anything by. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Ian, do you want to feed back on those comments?
I think points are all noted, and I just think that we just have to remember that this is about what's reasonable for each business. You carry on, and what risks they've got are reasonable measures, and they have done for the last 18 months, 2 years, if not longer than that. So I think I'm happy to relook at it and consider it, but I think we can't be too specific and too concrete, because what might be concrete for one business is definitely not concrete for another business.
Could I just say, Chair, also,
Yes,
after bringing this to the attention of the committee as something that did concern me, I think Nikki gave a quite adequate response to my question, and that was that this would all be dealt with. The defibrillator issues and the first aid issues would be brought up with the licensees in any risk assessments when they were being drawn up. I'm quite content with that. And I think that to look at it through the risk assessment would be the way to go. And after bringing it up, Chair, myself, as a concern after reading it, I'm content with that answer.
You want to add anything, Nikki?
No, that's all from me. Thank you.
You're happy about that. So, members, are you suggesting then that we make an amendment to what's written here, or are you fairly happy with it?
I think the officers have answered my question adequately in that the defibrillators and the first aid issues would be in any risk assessment that was done on what we call the larger venues. I'm content with that. On the other one that I'm on the drinking from bottles is going to be revisited. and sharpened up, because it's not quite clear exactly what that meant. And the water was dealt with quite adequately, that is mandatory. So I'm happy with the questions that I asked, and the 3 questions: defibrillators, the drinking from bottles, and the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Melvin Mile.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just questioning the relevance of paragraph 3 or point 3 on page 71, Chair, where the permitted price given by paragraph blah blah would not be a whole number of pennies. Well, we only do our minimum coinage is, I think, 5 pence now, isn't it? Do we need to have that paragraph in? It's a bit archaic, I think.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just going to page 71 now.
I think it's important to note that those are mandatory conditions
Just going to say,
rather than submitted conditions. So those are under statute that we have to put in.
Okay, fair enough. Just thought I'd point it out. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Now, I think that's all the committee so far that I can see. So Merrick is waiting to come in. Merrick.
Diolch yn fawr, Pachys
Thank you
Cadeirydd.
very much, respected Chair. One or two things. On page 29, 319 and over the page in red, you have highlighted this. What it says also is including a defibrillator in larger venues. What is the definition of a larger venue? Or you don't give any indication there unless it's in some other part of the report. Also, lower down, deploy staff trained to assist. What's the standard of training meant to be? Is it meant to be an examination by the Red Cross or what? What is the standard for that training? I sent a letter, an email on to the department, to Steve Price, raising an item on page 39, number 5, planning and building control. I can't see that you've made enough reference myself to the building control department, which has got some work to do in the licensing. Would it be possible to include more information on which parts of the regulations should be considered under this, as you've done in other sections? And my third point refers to page 64. It's at the end of the page, again in red. It's the third line. The fact that alcohol is a toxic substance and a drug. Is it also a drug?
thank you, Chair. Right, I'll go back to the first point, which is page 20, 29, 28, wasn't it, about training of staff? Again, every licensed premises will have their own training programme and plan. So it will be dependent on the premises. We won't have a standard training plan for each premises. It will be down to them to sort their own training.
Right, that's question 1.
The
Larger venues.
larger venues. The Licensing Act does have a table of audiences and customers. Larger venues I don't think it's actually stipulated within the legislation what a large premises is.
Yeah.
But there are large, very large venues that might be over 10,000 attendees. That is also written into the legislation. Unfortunately, I don't know what it would be. Probably again in risk assessment. Everything would come out in the risk assessment. Whether we need these extra measures.
All right, and item question 3.
That was page 39. The planning and building control section of the policy. We can look at this if members want us to look at more regulations. Planning will be a consultee on this policy and building control. So they would have an opportunity to feed into this review. And if they feel they wanted to add any more to the policy, it will be their opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Chair.
That was your.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, but it doesn't give much information regarding building control. It talks about planning a lot, but not the building control side. And it doesn't give what legislation you're using in that consultation. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Hopefully planning and building control will pick that up within the review, and we can feed into the revised policy.
Right. So this is a sort of out for consultation and review. It will go to building control. So we'll ask if they're happy with the way it's tabled or whether they want to suggest any amendments. Would that be all right, Mary?
Ardderchog, Mr. Cadeirydd, first class.
Excellent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't see anybody, any other members or observers or officers waiting to speak. So,
Sorry, Chair. What about the last question about alcohol on page 64?
oh, sorry, there was another question. Sorry, I thought we dealt with them all. Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
It's only a short one.
And which paragraph were you referring to there now?
Pen y dudalen, the fact that alcohol
It's
is
at the top of the page, third sentence down. Should the wording "and also a drug" be included after alcohol is a toxic substance? It's at page 64, first paragraph, third line down.
It starts with benefits should not mask the fact that alcohol is a toxic substance.
So what are you raising, please, Mary, concerning that word?
Well, shouldn't it be said it's a drug as well as being a toxic substance?
Right. We are sorry. Got it now. Yes. Is there a review, Nikki, about that comment?
Chair, if I may pass a comment on that. I think we've spoken with the health service who've been part of providing us with information, so we can take that back if they consider it to be a drug. I think we might be bordering on what is a definition of drugs and things like that. I think people associate alcohol to be a toxic substance because it does harm to you, but if we call it a drug, they would class it. They wouldn't say it was a class A, B, or C drug, or anything. They wouldn't consider it to be that, I don't think. So we we'll deal with it on a regional basis as well. So maybe some of the comments are picked up elsewhere from there as well.
Yes, mate. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Chair. But it is a habit forming toxic.
Absolutely is. Absolutely
So,
is, isn't it? Yeah.
That's why I brought it in.
So
Diolch yn
we'll
fawr.
take, we'll take that up for comment as part of the review procedure, Merrick, if that's
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Chair.
good. Fine. I don't see anybody else waiting to speak. So therefore, I take it from that, there's nobody dissenting against the body of the report, and you're happy for it to go forward for review and consultation. Is anybody against that? No, everybody seems to be happy. Yeah. So will somebody move that, please?
I'll move it, Chair.
Somebody second it? Yep. Okay, and it'll go to consultation now. Thank you very much indeed. That's been adopted then. Thank you very much, everybody, for your comments. At least demonstrating that we've read the policy. Right, item 6 now is our forward work programme, which you'll find on pages 73 to 76. Who's reporting on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. That will be me.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. So the purpose of the report is to provide members with a proposed forward work programme for 2021 to 2022. And you'll find that on appendix 1. Members will be aware that at the previous meeting in June, a verbal update of the licensing section's workload was provided, with an explanation as to the difficulties in maintaining a forward work programme over the last 18 months as a result of the impact coronavirus has had on the section. It was agreed that officers redraft the forward work programme and submit to members for approval to this meeting. In drafting the forward work programme, we've considered the policies relevant to the licensing committee and the review dates of these policies, along with any potential legislative changes being proposed by central government. So I'm just recommending today that members approve the proposed forward work programme as detailed on Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
So Appendix 1. So are members happy to approve that?
Yeah, I'll propose it.
But then before we do, I see Merrick's waiting to speak. Merrick?
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Just a very, very small thing. December is there and March is 21 and 22, but there's no dates. We have the actual dates. I'm not going as far as March because there's going to be an election.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the diaries, Nikki, do you know whether our actual dates yet?
I think we do have the dates, and yes, they will be included.
Yeah. When the actual dates will be included in the document, Merrick. Okay, right. Are we happy then to adopt the forward work programme? Yeah. So we want a proposer, please, to support the recommendation.
I'll propose it, Chair.
That's Barry and
Yeah, I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Is anybody against adopting the forward work programme? No dissenting voices. So I'll take it that demonstrates that everybody is in favour. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That completes part 1 of the meeting. We now will move to part 2. So I think firstly we'll have to move press and public, please, won't we? I think.